The terminal sat in an odd hush, an unusual lull where the sounds of clinking coffee cups and rolling suitcases were faint, almost respectful. Somewhere distant, a monotone voice crackled over the intercom. Flight delays, gate changes, reminders about unattended baggage. Yet Gate C-19 was quieter still, a pocket of calm in the usually bustling airport. The air smelled faintly of wet asphalt, a reminder of the rain that had passed through just an hour earlier. Then, a sound, soft but sharp against the sterile tiles. Click, click, click. The tapping came into view. A little girl, no taller than the handle of a rolling suitcase, appeared at the entrance of the gate. She was around 7, maybe younger. Her hair was a soft, mousy brown, clinging to her damp cheeks. Her skin was pale, almost translucent under the cold fluorescent lights. She clutched tightly to the harness of a towering German shepherd who moved beside her with deliberate, silent steps. His coat gleamed, midnight black running down his spine, fanning across his powerful frame like a living shadow. Each step the dog took was measured, controlled. Not the carefree bounce of a pet, but the rigid discipline of a protector. The girl said nothing. Her gaze stayed downward, her small shoulders tense. She never once lifted her eyes to meet the stares she inevitably drew. Her name was Emma, and the dog, the towering sentinel glued to her side, was Max. A retired seizure-alert dog, her silent guardian, her lifeline. It was a stewardess who noticed them first. Young, fresh-faced, her smile faltered slightly as her eyes caught the unmistakable form of the German shepherd. She approached with careful steps, her hands fluttering nervously at her waist. "I'm sorry," she said softly, crouching slightly to make her voice less imposing. "Pets aren't allowed in the main cabin unless they're small enough to fit under the seat." Max stopped. In one fluid movement, he lowered his head and nudged a battered leather tag hanging from his collar into the stewardess's view. It was worn, almost illegible, but the faint words, "medical service animal," were still visible. The young woman hesitated. She glanced down at Emma, noting the girl's twitching fingers, the slight heave of her chest with every shallow breath. Her mouth opened to say something when the cockpit door swung open. Out stepped Captain Matthew Clark. Broad-shouldered, his uniform as crisp as iron steel, he exuded authority with every step. His dark eyes surveyed the scene quickly and, upon seeing Max, tightened with disapproval. "That animal won't be allowed in my cabin," he said flatly, not unkindly but with the tone of a man citing an immovable rule. Emma's mother, who had been standing a few feet behind with their carry-on bags, moved forward, her face calm but firm. "He's not a pet," she said. "He's Emma's service animal. He alerts to seizures." "He's too big," Captain Clark interrupted, voice hard. "He'll block the aisle. That's a violation of FAA policy." The waiting area stirred. A businessman glanced up from his phone and muttered something under his breath. A woman further down the row pulled her toddler closer to her side. A couple exchanged uncomfortable glances. Max didn't react to the shifting mood around him. He simply sat down next to Emma, ears forward, alert, unwavering. Emma's hand tightened in his fur. Her body stiffened, small and taut as a wound spring. Then a sound, so soft it could have been imagined. A low, broken whimper from Max. His whole body shifted in an instant, muscles tightening, head pressing urgently against Emma's thigh. Emma blinked rapidly, confusion clouding her features. Her lips parted as if to say something, but no sound came. Then, with terrifying suddenness, her knees buckled. The world seemed to hold its breath. Emma's small body crumpled mid-step, but Max moved even faster. With a fluid grace born of endless hours of training, he slid his body beneath her, cushioning her fall. He braced himself like a living rampart, paws planted firmly, muscles locked. 2 sharp barks rang out. Not panic, not fear, an alert, a call for help. The entire gate froze. Heads turned. Phones rose. Someone whispered, "Is she okay?" Emma's mother dropped her bags and rushed forward, shouting her daughter's name, panic cracking her voice. Max never moved. He kept his body close to Emma, nose pressed against her cheek, breath calm, steady. His eyes remained locked on her tiny, trembling frame. Airport medics pushed through the small crowd, a defibrillator slung between them, but they slowed as they approached Max. His stare was not aggressive, but it was protective, a clear, silent warning. "Be careful." One medic knelt down, whispering soothingly. Max lifted his paw slightly, allowing them to ease Emma onto her side. Her body shuddered with small convulsions. They clipped a monitor to her finger, slipped an oxygen mask over her nose. All the while, Max stayed beside her, one paw resting gently against her shoulder, unmoving, unblinking. Minutes passed, thick and heavy as wet cloth. Then, a flutter. Emma's eyelids flickered. A whimper slipped past her lips. Her hand rose, trembling, groping the air. Max moved first. He pressed his forehead against hers in a soft, grounding touch. A collective exhale rippled through the crowd. Emma's mother sobbed, hand clutched over her mouth. Someone whispered, "He saved her." Captain Clark stood rooted to the spot, the arms that had been crossed over his chest now hanging limply by his sides. His stern eyes had softened, glassy with an emotion he couldn't quite name. He wasn't looking at the dog anymore. He was looking at Emma, the way her tiny frame clung instinctively to Max, how her breath evened with each nudge of his nose. His first officer appeared beside him, voice low but firm. "Sir, we can't separate them." There was a long pause, the kind that unspools entire philosophies in a single breath. "Fine," Captain Clark said at last, his voice rough. "He stays." At her feet. No exceptions. There were no cheers, no clapping, only a heavy, reverent silence. Like everyone understood this wasn't a moment for celebration but for gratitude. They boarded slowly, carefully. Max led Emma down the jet bridge, guiding her step by step, never breaking his formation. When they reached their seats, Max settled immediately at her feet, curling around her protectively. As the engines roared and the plane lifted off the rain-slicked runway, Max stayed pressed against her legs like living armor. When turbulence shook the cabin, Emma jolted, a flash of fear in her eyes. Instantly, Max nuzzled her hand, grounding her once more. Passengers who had earlier looked away now watched with soft smiles or damp eyes. Even the businessman who had muttered in irritation at the gate shifted in his seat, guilt written all over his face. Hours passed. The world outside faded from clouds to speckled lights below. The wheels kissed the earth with a gentle bump. The flight was over. Emma woke with a small, fragile smile. She leaned into Max, whispered something only he could hear, and his tail gave a soft, joyful thump against the floor. Evening had come to the city, bathing the airport in rich gold and violet hues. Long shadows stretched across the tarmac like reaching arms. Outside the gate, Emma knelt on the concrete, arms wrapped tight around Max's thick neck. "Good boy," she murmured into his fur. Max leaned into her touch, eyes half closed in bliss. And then, footsteps. Steady, deliberate. Captain Clark approached. He stopped a few feet away, visibly uncomfortable, like a man fighting against a lifetime of stubbornness. He knelt, a little awkwardly, a little stiffly, and extended his hand. "I was wrong," he said, voice gravelly with emotion. Max regarded him, head tilted slightly. There was no growl, no hesitation, only a pause. Then he stepped forward and, with slow deliberation, licked the captain's hand once. Captain Clark let out a disbelieving, broken laugh. A tear traced a line down his weathered cheek. Overhead, a plane climbed into the glowing sky. A new journey, a new understanding. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes don't wear badges or capes. Sometimes, they wear a vest. And they walk beside the ones they were born to protect.